What's going on? It's your boy Sermon at Sermon's Domain on Twitter. Joe Budden is going back to back with diss records towards Drake. He started out last week with Making a Murderer Part 1, and he waited 5 days. Kind of in the same way that Drake did to Meek. He did Charged Up, then 4 days later he did back to back. So he waited these days and he hear no response from Drake, nothing on OVO Sound Radio, and now he's back with Wake. It's also produced by A-Rap Music again. It seems like the two are kind of building that hype for the collaboration album that they're doing. So having him produce it just means that this combination is going to be familiar for people. Now, I don't know how many people are going to check out that album because of these two diss records, but on paper, it seems like it might be a smart strategy. So Joe seriously does his homework this time around. My main complaint with Making a Murderer Part 1 was that it was too long, had too much filler material, but on this record, at 4 minutes and 10 seconds, he cuts out that filler material and really goes in for an impact. I like how he structured it to be kind of like Awake, Drake is gone, he's dead, his family is mourning, Courtney from Hooters is, spilling drinks, she's losing her mind. I like that. It was a small part at the beginning of the song. It's not like the whole diss is structured that way, but I liked it because it kind of painted that picture like Joe is serious, Joe is really going in. And then he released the song at 2:31 a.m. 2:31 is the time that Drake was born. Now, before you go thinking Joe's some kind of crazy ex-stalker type, Drake's birth certificate was posted online. Drake actually posted it on Instagram. I believe it's 88 weeks ago. Now, I'm not sitting here going to say like Joe was, going down his Instagram and found him at 88 weeks. I'm sure somebody in his corner was like, yo, Drake's, birth certificate, yada, yada, yada. So I don't think Joe himself did it. So I seen some people thinking, Joe's some kind of crazy stalker guy. He's just really calculated. Even the artwork, it mirrors back to back. Back to back had the Blue Jays player running the bases. Now this one features a Blue Jays player getting punched. So it kind of, like that whole vibe. I like that. And that's even before you really get to the music. Like, we haven't even discussed the music. We're just talking about the release around it. And that's one of the many things that Joe does on this disc is address Drake going at Jay-Z. He flips his line from Say What's Real. He says, wasn't you at Hove's show scared to pull your camera out? Drake said on Say What's Real he's embarrassed to pull his camera out or whatever. The biggest hit on this entire disc is the fact that Joe calls out Drake for wave riding. Drake is someone who's worked with Migos, Fetty Wap, Gucci, the list goes on, and essentially he's been using some of these artists to remain hot. He used Migos, did the Versace flow, and then, sort of emulated that on his Nothing Was the Same album. He jumped on Fetty Wap's song because it was hot at the time. Future, the whole Future tape. I'm surprised Joe didn't, name drop Future in the diss. But that's one of the main things that hits hard to Drake is because it's all true. We all witness it. We've all said it. Like, even though Drake is one of the biggest artists right now and everybody loves him and praises him, that's still a fact that you can't ignore. And I think even Drake fans are willing to admit that he does, that wave jumping from time to time. He also said Gucci wasn't home 2 seconds before you wrote his dick. The Party Next Door lines were cold. Saying we want Party album, but Drake is still on our Party album because to make for his own Party album. I thought that was a really cold diss line right there. Again, because it seems true. Now, it might not be facts, but if Joe can present some of these lines as if they're fact, that's when you have a winning line right there. And another line that really, oh my god, I was so amazed at this line because it's so clever and it's so witty. He says, so I take all the guns, load half the clips. I just noticed you run when we mentioned half the clips. Alluding to Drake running from Pusha T and all the dishes that Pusha was throwing at him. Man, that is probably my favorite line on the whole thing. And like I said, there's a lot of good lines on here. Joe also mentioned Zombie on the track, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about how I thought Zombie on the Track was going to be a huge producer after starting from the bottom. I just think whenever you work with Drake, it brings some kind of attention to you. And while that resulted in a really good check and probably some new fans from Zombie on the Track really isn't a huge name. He's not everywhere producing for a bunch of people. He's dropped his own projects as an artist slash producer. So I was just surprised. You know, I remember I tweeted out after Started From the Bottom came out, I tweeted that Zombie on the Track will be a household name by the end of the year, but that didn't happen, which was, you know, surprising to me. One of the last lines on the diss record is battery in him, let's see if he's charged up now. Joe Budden is really going to bait Drake. Drake is going to have to respond in some way, shape, or form. I know he's got the record with French Montana coming up that supposedly addresses Joe Budden, but that was before the fact. We heard that little snippet, and then Joe's been going at him ever since. So I don't know if Drake needs to respond. He doesn't really need to respond, but he should respond. Joe's hit him with 2 diss records that are exceptional. I think Wake is way better than Making a Murderer Part 1. Miles better. And at this point, I don't think Joe needs to drop another diss to Drake. I know he might have one being loaded up from Meek Mill, and that's fine. That's a whole nother subject. But as far as Drake, if you drop a 3rd Drake diss, it just seems like you're so desperate for attention. I get it now. You're employing some of the tactics that Drake did to Meek Mill. That's clever, that's cool, but now is where it stops. No more diss records, because if Drake doesn't respond, then he's never going to respond. It doesn't matter what you say about him. But I'm interested to see if Drake takes this serious enough to respond, and not a subliminal, you know, several months down the line. I'm talking like a full-on response in the vein of like a Good Riddance. And I know Drake's not that artist anymore, but I just feel it would be an interesting battle, because I know Drake can go hard when he wants to. He's not Joe Budden lyrical, but I'm sure he'll come up with some clever things to say and probably make it a hit in the process. But as of now, who knows if Drake's going to respond or acknowledge it or whatever. Joe is fired up. He's loaded. He's ready for his upcoming project with A-Rap Music. And now I want to know what you think about Wake in the comment section below. What did you think about the diss? What was the best lines in your opinion? And do you think this is one of his best? And do you think it's better than Making a Murderer? Tossing out a bunch of questions here. Just talk to me in the comment section below, and then like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, share the video. Follow me on Twitter @SermonsDomain. And as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate you for watching, and until next time, peace.